Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm really excited to share a classic, traditional Puerto Rican Christmas dessert known as Arroz con Dulce. So let's get into it. So before I make my arroz con dulce, it's very important that I soak my rice in water. I soaked my rice for about 7 hours, but you can soak it up to overnight. So here I have 1 cup of medium grain rice. You cannot use long grain rice for this recipe. It has to be either medium or short grain rice. So I have a small pot here, and ignore how stained it is, okay? It's been through a lot. And in this pot, I have 2 cups of water. I'm gonna make a spice tea, and I'm gonna boil it until I get about 1.5 cups of this tea, okay? So instead of using dry spices, I am making this arroz con dulce the traditional way, starting with 1.5 inches of fresh ginger. And the reason why I'm making the tea instead of using dry spices is because since I only make this once or twice a year, I want to hold on to our ancestors' tradition, right? Because this is how, generations of Puerto Ricans have made it. And then I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of whole cloves. Clove spice is my absolute favorite sweet spice. So you can add a little more if you want, or a little less. It's up to you. And by the way, I'll have all of the ingredients in the description box below. All right, now I'm going to add a couple of cinnamon sticks. The good thing about this tea is that it's totally customizable. You can also add a couple of star anise. You can also add some allspice. You can add a little bit of fresh nutmeg if you prefer. So it's totally up to you. All right, now I'm going to bring this to a boil. And again, I'm going to boil it until I have about 1.5 cups of tea. So once the water came to a boil, I only boiled it for about 5 minutes. And it rendered about 1.5 cups of tea. Now, if you have a little less liquid than 1.5 cups, you can just add a little bit of water. It's not gonna dilute it terribly at all. You'll be fine. You just wanna make sure that you have 1.5 cups, okay? All right, now I'm just gonna strain it and I'm good to go. All right, now it's time for the fun part. So in a large pot, I added the tea. I also added 1 can of full fat evaporated milk, and now I am adding 1 can of full fat coconut milk. Make sure you use a very high quality coconut milk because it does matter. Check in the Asian section of your grocery store or other Spanish brands. All right, so after I added all of my milks, I'm gonna set my heat to medium. Okay, you can kind of see like the fat of the coconut floating. That's okay, that will eventually dissolve. Okay, now I'm gonna add about 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I'm gonna add only 1/2 teaspoon of pure anise extract. So when I went to the grocery store, I couldn't find star anise, but using anise extract is okay. If you do not know what anise smells or tastes like, it kind of smells like black licorice. So a little goes a long way, okay? Do not add too much of this because it's very, very strong. Okay, and now I'm gonna add my 1 cup of rice that I have soaked for about 7 hours. Just gonna throw that in there. Again, my heat is set over medium. The really good thing about this recipe, since I'm only using 1 cup of rice, it is very easy to double, triple, quadruple, etc. You can make as much of this recipe as you like because it's very easy to multiply. And again, just refer to the description box below if you are going to make it for the holidays. And after I gave everything a good stir, I'm then gonna add about half a teaspoon of some salt, and I'm gonna wait until all of this comes to a nice simmer. All right, so once all of the liquid has come to a boil, I'm gonna set my heat from medium to medium low, and I'm gonna keep it there for a good while. All right, and I'm gonna be stirring this constantly, at least every 2 minutes. I wanna make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom. I also wanna make sure that the milk does not boil over. And then lastly, I want to be sure that the liquid is not evaporating too quickly, all right? As you can see, about every 5 minutes, it's changing. It's getting thicker, the rice is cooking, the liquid is starting to evaporate, and it's going really, really well. Okay, and at this point, my rice is tender, which is really good. But even though the rice is cooked, the rice pudding is not ready. We want to keep cooking it, okay? So at this point, I'm going to add 1 cup of white sugar, and then I'm going to add half a cup of brown sugar. And the reason why I don't add the sugars in the beginning is because the sugar will delay the cooking process of the rice. So you want to add that once the rice is tender. Okay, so after that, I'm going to add about 1/3 of a cup of raisins. Some people don't like raisins in their arroz con dulce, and that's okay. You can leave it out if your family doesn't like it. This is a traditional ingredient, but even though it's traditional, I don't like to add too much. So I found that between 1/4 of a cup and 1/3 of a cup of raisins, it's like perfect. You can also add like dried cranberries or dried blueberries in case you want to switch it up. So from the very beginning of me putting all of the ingredients in the pot, up until this point, it has been about 25 minutes. This is a very simple and uncomplicated recipe. The trick is to keep an eye on your heat. Keeping it at medium low or a little lower is key, just as long as it comes to a simmer. And then I'm gonna add 5 more minutes of cooking time, and then my arroz con dulce is finally done. This is the consistency that you're looking for. You want it to have like a nice, thick, rich, and creamy oatmeal consistency, okay? You don't want it to be too thick, but you don't want it to be too thin. You can enjoy this either cold or warm, okay? And you don't want it to be too thick because once it chills in the refrigerator, the rice pudding firms up and it gets harder, and you don't want it to be too firm where it's not enjoyable. But this right here is perfect. All right, and just like that, my arroz con dulce is done. And let me tell you, so once I made this, I gave a plate to my mom and I gave a plate to my mother-in-law, and they both absolutely loved it. So you know that if your mom and your mother-in-law like it, it's a good recipe. So they gave it a 10 out of 10. And that is all for today's video. If you are new here, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. I come out with new Puerto Rican cooking tutorials regularly. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to hit that notification bell. Until next time.